Ambassador Ji-won Park stepped out of the shuttle and paused for a moment. Even after 3 years of visiting the galactic capital, Nexus Prime still stole her breath. Towering crystal spires rose toward the endless purple sky, their translucent surfaces shimmering with rivers of living light. As the twin suns slowly crossed overhead, the entire city changed color, glowing first sapphire, then emerald, then brilliant gold. Nothing on Earth compared to it. The buildings didn't look constructed. They looked alive, as if the planet itself had grown them from its own surface. High above, thousands of ships drifted gracefully between floating platforms, disappearing into shimmering transport portals that stitched the city together. This was the center of galactic civilization, the heart of an empire of stars. And today, humanity was about to discover exactly where it stood within it. Ji-won adjusted the silver insignia on her diplomatic uniform and took a slow breath. 3 years. That was how long she had served as Earth's ambassador. 3 years since humanity had shattered the light-speed barrier. 3 years since the impossible became reality. The universe wasn't empty. It was overflowing with life. Hundreds of intelligent species. Thousands of inhabited worlds. Ancient civilizations whose histories stretched back hundreds of thousands of years. When first contact had been made, Earth celebrated. People believed they had entered a new era, an age of peace, an age of cooperation. The Galactic Council had promised equality, shared knowledge, mutual protection, a family among the stars. For a while, humanity believed every word. Ambassador. Ji-won turned as Colonel Ta-hoon Kim stepped beside her. Unlike her formal diplomatic attire, the military officer looked visibly uncomfortable in his ceremonial uniform. His right hand kept drifting toward his hip by pure instinct, only to stop every time. Weapons were strictly forbidden inside the council chambers. For a career soldier, it felt like walking into battle unarmed. The emergency session begins in 1 hour, Ta-hoon said quietly. The delegation is waiting. Ji-won nodded. I'm coming. He studied her expression. You don't look convinced. She gave a faint smile that never reached her eyes. I'm not. For several seconds they stood together, watching alien transports descend from the sky like falling stars. Finally Ta-hoon spoke again. Do you think today's vote is already decided? Ji-won didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the towering council spire standing at the center of the city. Its brilliant crystal walls reflected the sunlight so brightly, they were almost impossible to look at. Beautiful. Perfect. Cold. The past few months haven't gone well for Earth, she said at last. Our trade proposals have been rejected. Our exploration rights have been delayed. Our scientific projects have been suspended. She lowered her voice. And every decision has come from the same people. Ta-hoon's face hardened. The inner council. Ji-won nodded. They smile while they shake our hands. They praise humanity in public. And behind closed doors, they keep moving us one step farther away from real influence. The colonel folded his arms. So today's meeting isn't about diplomacy. No. Ji-won looked directly at the towering council hall. It's about power. A deep bell echoed across Nexus Prime. Once, twice, then a third time. The sound rolled through the city like distant thunder. Delegates from every species immediately began moving toward the Grand Council chamber. The session was about to begin. Ji-won watched them in silence. Some smiled politely as they passed. Others avoided making eye contact altogether. A few stared openly at the human delegation. Not with hatred, not with curiosity, but with calculation. As if humanity had become a problem that needed solving. Ji-won felt the familiar weight settle in her chest. She had spent 3 years trying to earn the galaxy's trust. Today, she feared she would finally learn the truth. The Galactic Council had never invited humanity to become an equal, only to become obedient. Every proposal they made was voted down. Every request for trade agreements was denied. Every attempt to join council missions was refused. The other species looked at humans like they were dangerous animals that might bite at any moment. They walked through the main plaza, where beings from across the galaxy moved about their business. The tall, graceful Valorans floated past on their energy platforms, their blue skin glowing softly. A group of Krathan soldiers marched by in perfect formation, their armor clicking with each step. Ancient etherealists drifted through the crowd like living shadows, barely visible. None of them looked at the humans. "They're afraid of us," Tahun said quietly. "No," T replied. "They think we're beneath them. There's a difference." The council chamber was a massive dome that could hold thousands of beings. Each species had their section marked by different atmosphere controls and gravity fields. The human section was small, just a few seats in the observer area. Earth had been given observer status, which meant they could watch, but had no vote. Jiwan and Tahun took their seats as the chamber filled. Representatives from 862 different species took their places. The diversity was amazing. Beings of crystal and light, creatures that looked like living plants, species that existed partly in other dimensions. Humanity was just one more species in this vast community. Council Speaker Veltar rose from the central platform. The Kran leader was 7 feet tall and covered in natural armor that gleamed under the chamber lights. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the dome without any visible technology. "We gathered today to address Proposal 847 Gamma." Veltar announced the complete quarantine of the Sol system and the species known as humans. Jiwan felt her heart stop. She looked at Tahun, whose face had gone pale. This was not what they had expected. They thought today was about trade agreements. "The charges," Veltar continued, "are as follows. The species is uncontrollably aggressive. They have weapons capable of destroying their own world. They solve conflicts through violence rather than diplomacy. They are technologically reckless. They pose a clear threat to galactic stability and peace." The evidence appeared on holographic displays around the chamber. Images of Earth's wars, nuclear weapons tests, and military conflicts. Videos of humans fighting each other, destroying their environment, and building ever more powerful weapons. To the watching aliens, humanity looked like a species that could not control itself. A Valoran representative spoke first. "These beings have not known peace for even a single generation. In our observations, they are always fighting someone. How can we trust them not to bring that violence to our worlds?" An ethereal's voice whispered through the chamber like wind. "They split the atom for destruction before they used it for energy. They reached for the stars while their own world suffered. This is not the wisdom of a mature species." One after another, representatives stood to speak against humanity. They talked about Earth's pollution, its wars, its weapons. They spoke of humans as if they were a disease that might spread to other worlds. Jiwan stood up. As an observer, she was not supposed to speak, but she could not stay silent. "Honorable Council," she called out, "you judge us by our worst moments, but you do not see our best. Yes, we have known war, but we have also known peace. Yes, we have made weapons, but we have also made art, music, and literature. We have cured diseases, explored our world, and reached for the stars not from hate, but from hope." Some representatives turned to look at her, but their expressions did not change. "You see our conflicts and call us violent," Jiwan continued. "But those conflicts taught us to value peace. You see our weapons and call us dangerous. But those same weapons protected us when we needed protection. Every mistake we made, we learned from. Every problem we faced, we solved. That is what makes us human." Veltar looked down at her. "Ambassador Park, you speak of learning and growth. But your species continues to make the same mistakes. War, pollution, inequality. These problems persist on your world even now. How can you claim to have learned when you have not changed?" "Because change takes time," Joanne said, "and because the problems you see as weaknesses, we see as challenges to overcome. Humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to grow, to become better than we were." But her words fell on deaf ears. The vote was called, and one by one, the species of the galaxy made their choice. The numbers appeared on the great display. 847 votes for quarantine, 12 abstentions, 3 votes against. "The motion passes," announced. "The Sol system will be sealed with an energy barrier. No ships will enter or leave. The species known as humans will be contained until they prove they are no longer a threat to galactic peace." Jejuan stood in the sudden silence of the chamber. Every eye was on her, waiting to see how the human would react. Tahun had his hand on her shoulder, ready to pull her away if needed. Instead, Jeju smiled. "You have made a grave miscalculation," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the dome. "You think you are protecting the galaxy from us, but you are only protecting us from the galaxy's influence. You believe you have caged us, but you have only given us the perfect environment to become something you cannot imagine." She walked toward the exit, Tahan beside her. At the chamber entrance, she turned back one more time. Humanity's greatest achievements have always come when we were told something was impossible. When we were told we could not fly, we built wings. When we were told we could not reach the stars, we built rockets. When we were told we could not survive, we thrived. You haven't contained us. You have forged us into something new. The shuttle ride back to Earth was quiet. Tahun finally spoke as they entered Earth's atmosphere. "What do we tell them back home?" Jijuan looked out at the blue and green world below, at the cities and lights that marked human civilization. "We tell them the truth. The galaxy has declared us too dangerous to be free. Now we show them what dangerous really looks like." 2 years had passed since the barrier went up, and Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Dr. Minj Choi stood in the observation deck of the new orbital station, watching ships that moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The vessels bent space around them, shifting through dimensions that most species did not even know existed. "Status report," Minjay said into his communicator. "All systems green," came the reply from Captain Han Wu Li aboard the lead ship. "The quantum drive is stable. We're ready for the next test." Minjay nodded and made notes on his tablet. As Director of Unified Earth Sciences, he oversaw humanity's response to isolation. When the galaxy locked them away, every nation on Earth had put aside their differences. There were no more separate space programs, no more competing research projects. Every scientist, every engineer, every brilliant mind on the planet was working toward one goal. The barrier that surrounded the Sol system was meant to keep humans in, but it had become something else entirely. It was a laboratory wall, and behind it, humanity was conducting experiments that the galaxy had deemed too dangerous to allow. "Beginning quantum phase test," Captain Lee announced. Minjay watched as the ship in front of him seemed to become transparent, then disappeared entirely. For a moment, there was nothing but empty space. Then the ship reappeared, but it was now behind the observation station. "Successful phase through solid matter," Lee reported. The ship passed completely through the station, without affecting either structure. It was impossible by every law of physics the galaxy knew. But humans had never been very good at accepting impossible. The breakthrough had come from Lieutenant Nari Yoon and her team. They had been working on communication systems when they discovered something extraordinary. Human consciousness could be linked through quantum networks, allowing instant coordination across vast distances. What the aliens saw as humanity's greatest weakness, their tendency to fight each other, had become their greatest strength. "Lieutenant Yoon, report to the bridge," Minj said into his communicator. Dari arrived a few minutes later, her uniform marked with the new symbol of United Earth. Not a flag or nation, but a simple image of connected minds. She was young, barely 25, but her work had changed everything. "The consciousness network is operating at full capacity," she reported. "All ships, all stations, all ground facilities are linked. Response time for coordinated actions is now measured in milliseconds, and the crew adaptation better than expected. The pilots say it's like having 1,000 minds thinking as one, but each person still remains themselves. We can share thoughts, strategies, even skills, but we don't lose our individual personalities." Minjay smiled. The galaxy had looked at human conflict and seen chaos. They had missed the fact that through all their fighting, humans had learned to understand each other better than any other species understood itself. "Sir," came another voice over the communicator, "Engineer Dun Jiang needs to see you in Construction Bay 7. Minjay made his way through the station's corridors. The place was massive, built in the 2 years since the quarantine began. It served as shipyard, research facility, and command center all in one. But it was more than that. It was proof that humanity could build something greater than the sum of its parts. Engineer Jiang was waiting beside what looked like a weapon, but Minjay knew it was much more than that. The device was sleek and silver, covered in patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. "The reality anchor is complete," Jiang announced. "We can now fix the laws of physics in a localized area, preventing enemy ships from using their own exotic technologies. And our ships don't rely on bending natural laws. They work with quantum mechanics, that exist in all dimensions. The anchor won't affect us, but it will ground any ship that depends on manipulating space-time. Min-Jae walked around the device, amazed at what human ingenuity had created. In 2 years, they had gone from barely understanding faster-than-light travel to building technology that could rewrite reality itself. There's something else, Jen continued. We've been monitoring the barrier. It's not as stable as the Council thinks. There are fluctuations, stress points. If something hit it hard enough from the outside, it would fail, Miji finished. Yes, and when it does, we'll be ready. Mi left the construction bay and made his way to the command center. Admiral So-Young Bae was there studying tactical displays that showed the entire Sol system. The barrier appeared as a shimmering dome around everything, but Min-Jae could see the stress readings Jang had mentioned. Admiral, he said, how many ships do we have ready? 57 of the new class vessels, she replied, each one capable of independent action or perfect coordination with the others. Each one equipped with technology the galaxy has never seen. And crews, every pilot has been through the consciousness linking process. They can think and act as one mind, while maintaining their individual skills and judgment. It's like having an entire fleet commanded by one tactical genius, except that genius is made up of thousands of the best minds humanity has ever produced. Min-Jae looked at the tactical display. Earth's orbital defenses were unlike anything that had ever existed. Ships that could phase through matter, weapons that could fix the laws of physics, and crews that could coordinate perfectly without any delay for communication. The galaxy had tried to contain humanity's chaos, but they had only given humans the perfect environment to channel that chaos into purpose. Sir, called out Communications Officer Hano, we're picking up something strange from outside the barrier. What kind of strange? Unknown ships, lots of them. They don't match any council configurations, and they're moving in formation toward the Cran border worlds. Admiral Bay moved to the communication station. Can we get a visual? The main screen lit up with an image from deep space. Ships that looked more like living creatures than machines were moving in a massive swarm. They had no visible weapons, no clear propulsion systems, but they moved with a purpose that was unmistakable. Those aren't council ships, Min-Jae said. No, Admiral Bay agreed. And if they're heading for Krath in space, they're not friendly. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The barrier around the SAW system flickered, then stabilized, then flickered again. What's happening? Min-Jae demanded. The barrier is failing, reported Engineer Jang over the communicator. Something is affecting it from the outside. Whatever those ships are, they're interfering with the Council's containment technology. Admiral Bay turned to her command staff. All ships to ready status. If that barrier fails, we need to be prepared for anything, Admiral. Min-Jae said quietly. What if this isn't an accident? What if something out there has been waiting for the galaxy to lock us away before making their move? The barrier flickered again, more violently this time. Through the failing energy field, they could see more of the unknown ships moving through space like a plague of insects. Then, Admiral Bay said, the galaxy is about to learn that they locked away the wrong species. The command center fell silent, except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of ships powering up their new quantum drives. Humanity had spent 2 years preparing for the day they would prove themselves to the galaxy. They had not expected to do it by saving the galaxy from something else entirely. The barrier around Earth shattered like glass. Admiral So-Young Bae watched the energy field collapse in sections, revealing the stars that had been hidden for 2 years. But those stars were not empty. Thousands of dark shapes moved between them, heading toward the inner galaxy with the single-minded purpose of a swarm. All stations read alert, she commanded. Launch all available ships. This is not a drill. Pilot Jun Kang was already in his cockpit when the order came. His ship, the Thunderbird, was one of the new quantum-class vessels that humanity had built during their isolation. As he activated the consciousness link, he felt the minds of 49 other pilots join with his. They were separate but connected, individual but unified. This is Lead 1, he said, though his words reached every ship instantly through the quantum network. Form up on me. We're heading for the breach point. The human fleet moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Ships appeared and disappeared, phasing through each other to form complex patterns in space. They moved as one mind controlling 50 bodies, each ship perfectly coordinated with all the others. Contact bearing 27 Mark V, reported Scanning Officer Mara Song from the command ship. Unknown vessels approaching at high speed. Jiune's ship dropped out of quantum phase just as the first of the enemy vessels came into view. It was unlike anything in the galactic databases, organic-looking, with a surface that rippled like living flesh. It had no visible weapons, no clear propulsion system, but it moved with purpose. "By all the stars," whispered pilot Sang Hunu over the comm. "What are those things?" The answer came from deep space communications, crackling with distress and static. "This is Kreia Border Station 7. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown vessels are consuming our ships. They're not destroying them. They're absorbing them." Admiral Ba's voice came through the command channel. "All ships new priority. Proceed to Krath in space immediately. These are hostile forces." But as the human fleet moved toward the border, another transmission cut through space. This one was clear, broadcast on all frequencies, and it came from the very heart of the galaxy to any human vessels in the vicinity of the Krathan system. The voice belonged to Council Speaker Veltar, the same Krei who had voted to quarantine Earth. "The Galactic Council formally requests assistance. We need your help." Jujun felt the irony through the quantum link. 50 pilots sharing the same bitter laugh. 2 years ago, these same aliens had declared humanity too dangerous to be free. Now they were begging for that danger to save them. Captain Yunji Lim's voice came from the flagship Prometheus Rising. "This is Captain Lim responding to Council request. What exactly are we dealing with out there?" "Unknown species from the galactic rim," Camelar's reply. "They call themselves Devourers. They don't just attack our ships. They absorb them, learn from them, become stronger. Our conventional weapons are useless. They adapt to everything we throw at them." "Understood," Captain Lim replied. "Human fleet is en route. Estimate arrival in 6 hours." But Jujun was already there. His ship dropped out of quantum phase directly in the middle of the battle zone. The sight that greeted him was carnage. Krathan ships, massive and powerful, were being overwhelmed by creatures that looked more like living asteroids than spacecraft. The Devourers moved in swarms surrounding individual ships, and somehow merging with them. "This is Pilot Kang," he broadcast on all frequencies, beginning attack run. What happened next would be talked about in every military academy in the galaxy, for generations to come. June's ship phased through a Devourer vessel. But as it did, the quantum field generated by his drive tore the creature apart from the inside. The alien ship simply ceased to exist, its matter scattered across several dimensions. "Effective kill," reported Tactical Officer Sungman Oh from the Prometheus Rising. "The quantum drive appears to disrupt their biological processes." More human ships arrived, and with them came something the galaxy had never seen. Warfare that adapted in real time. When the Devourers tried to swarm a human vessel, the ship would phase out of normal space. When they attempted to absorb human technology, they found nothing to grab onto. The ships existed partially in dimensions the Devourers could not reach. But the real revelation came when the human fleet began working together through the consciousness link. Every pilot could see what every other pilot saw. When one ship discovered a weakness in the enemy, all ships knew it instantly. When a new tactic was needed, 50 minds worked together to create it in milliseconds. Captain Lim watched the battle from her command chair, coordinating the fleet through the quantum network. "The Devourers are learning from us," she reported. "But we're learning faster." It was true. Each time the Devourers adapted to a human tactic, the humans had already moved on to something new. They fought like water, flowing around obstacles, finding weaknesses, and striking where the enemy was most vulnerable. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, the Devourer swarm was scattered. Their ships destroyed or fleeing toward the galactic rim. The Craven ships that remained floated in space, their crew stunned by what they had witnessed. "This is Kron Commander Threx," came a transmission from the lead surviving ship. How did you do that? We've been fighting them for 6 months. You defeated them in less than an hour." Captain Lim smiled, though the alien couldn't see her. "We didn't fight them the way you fight. We fought them the way humans fight. I don't understand. You fought with honor and courage, following your traditional tactics. The Devourers fought to consume and grow stronger. Neither approach worked because you were both fighting the war you expected, not the war that was actually happening." Commander Sun began his post-battle analysis, cataloging every moment of the engagement. What he found would change how the galaxy thought about warfare forever. "The key," he explained to Admiral Bay, "is that we didn't just fight to win. We fought to end the war. Every shot we fired, every tactic we used was designed not just to defeat the enemy in front of us, but to make sure they couldn't come back stronger. While the Crayon had focused on destroying individual ships, humans had systematically dismantled the Devourer command structure, supply lines, and breeding facilities. They had fought the entire enemy civilization, not just its military. Admiral Bay opened a channel to the council chambers on Nexus Prime. This is Admiral Bay of United Earth Forces. The Devourer attack on Krathon space has been neutralized. We are standing by for new orders. There was a long silence before Council Speaker responded. Admiral, the Council wishes to discuss new arrangements. Perhaps the quarantine was premature. Perhaps it was. Admiral Bay agreed. But we'll need to discuss terms. Humanity is not the same species you locked away 2 years ago. Through the view screen, she could see Earth in the distance, no longer caged behind an energy barrier. Humanity had been freed not by their own efforts, but by the galaxy's need for the very danger they had tried to contain. The irony was not lost on her. The galaxy had created exactly what they feared most: a human military that was more advanced, more coordinated, and more effective than anything that had ever existed. And now they needed it to survive. General Young J. Choi stood before the largest holographic display ever constructed, showing the entire galaxy in real time. Red markers indicated Devourer attacks, and there were far too many of them. The enemy had not been defeated at Crayon space. They had only been driven back to regroup. Status report, he said to the assembled commanders. Intelligence analyst Hun stepped forward, her datapad glowing with information that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. The Devourers are not just another aggressive species, she began. They are a galactic-level extinction event. They don't conquer worlds. They consume them completely, absorbing all life, all technology, all knowledge. She gestured to the display, and images of devastated worlds appeared. What had once been thriving planets were now empty husks, their surfaces stripped of everything that had once made them alive. The Council military doctrine hasn't evolved in over 1,000 years, Hyun continued. They fight wars of attrition and honor following established protocols. The Devourers fight to survive and grow. Neither approach will work against what's coming. General Choi nodded grimly. How long do we have? Based on their current expansion rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 8 months. The Council has maybe half that time before their military collapses entirely. The door to the command center opened, and Ambassador Ji-won Park walked in. She now bore the title of Supreme Diplomatic Commander, a position created specifically for humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Behind her came representatives from a dozen different species, all looking uncomfortable but determined. The emergency council session has ended, she announced. The results were interesting. She activated her own display showing the voting record. Motion to grant humanity full galactic citizenship passed. Motion to establish technological sharing agreements passed. Motion to create unified command structure passed. Motion to place human commanders in charge of galactic defense passed. Valoran Ambassador Zanel spoke up, his blue skin flickering with nervous energy. We want to make it clear that this is a temporary arrangement until the Devour threat is eliminated. Admiral Kyung Sube, who had just arrived from the Outer Rim Patrol, laughed. Ambassador, with respect, you don't get to decide what's temporary anymore. You asked us to save the galaxy. That means you follow our rules now. To prove his point, Admiral Bay activated his communicator. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Bay. Begin operation demonstration. On the holographic display, markers began moving as human fleets repositioned throughout the galaxy. In less than 6 hours, human ships had taken control of every major hyperspace route, every strategic resource point, and every key defensive position. How is this possible? Demanded Craraven General Vor. You don't have enough ships to be everywhere at once. Commander Gina Lim smiled from her position at the tactical display. We don't need to be everywhere. We just need to be everywhere that matters. Our quantum consciousness network means one human ship can coordinate the actions of an entire sector. What takes you weeks of planning and communication we do in minutes. She gestured to a specific sector on the display. For example, right now, pilot Jeon Kong is simultaneously commanding 3 separate battles in different star systems. His consciousness is linked to 17 other pilots, and together, they're making tactical decisions faster than your computers can process them. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing unease. They had asked humanity for help. but they were beginning to realize they had given humanity control of everything. "The point," said General Choi, "is that humanity will fight this war the way it needs to be fought. Not the way you've always fought wars, not the way the Devourers fight wars, but the way that actually works." He activated another display showing battle plans that made the alien military mind struggle to keep up. "We're not going to chase Devourer fleets around the galaxy until they adapt to our tactics. We're going to eliminate their ability to make war entirely." Intelligence analyst Hyan Song took over the briefing. Phase 1. Systematic destruction of all Devourer production facilities. They can't adapt if they can't build new ships. Phase 2. Disruption of their command network. They coordinate through biological quantum entanglement. We've learned to jam it. Phase 3. Elimination of their breeding worlds. No new Devourers means no expansion. That's genocide, whispered Ethereal Representative Vashiri. "No," corrected Admiral Bay. "That's extinction prevention. They started this war by trying to consume every living thing in the galaxy. We're finishing it by making sure they can never try again." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was not just fighting to defend the galaxy, they were fighting to remake it entirely. "There's something else," General Choi continued. "The Council's command structure is too slow for this kind of war. Too much bureaucracy, too many committees, too much debate. From now on, strategic decisions will be made by human commanders and implemented immediately." Valoran Ambassador Zaytal's skin flashed angry red. "You cannot simply ignore the will of 862 species." "We're not ignoring it," replied Ambassador Park. "We're replacing it with something that actually works. You wanted us to save the galaxy. That requires us to run it." General Choi gestured to the holographic display one more time. 57 human ships defeated a Devourer fleet that had been terrorizing the Kraven for 6 months. "We did it in 47 minutes because we fought smart, not hard. Because we adapted faster than they could learn. Because we ended the fight instead of just winning it. But most importantly," added Admiral Bay, "we did it because we fought as one species with one goal, not as 800 separate groups trying to protect their own interests." The alien representatives began to murmur among themselves, but General Choi cut them off. "The old way of doing things created this problem," he said firmly. "The Council was so focused on tradition and protocol that they missed the Devourers entirely. They let them build up their forces for decades while debating trade agreements and territorial disputes." Commander Gina Lim brought up a tactical analysis on the main screen. "Our intelligence shows that the Council first detected Devourer scouts 15 years ago. 15 years of committee meetings, diplomatic protests, and cultural exchange attempts while the enemy prepared to consume the galaxy. Humanity has been in space for 5 years," continued General Choi. "In that time, we've solved faster-than-light travel, developed quantum consciousness networks, created ships that can phase through matter, and built weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics. We did all of that while locked behind your barrier." He walked closer to the alien representatives, and his voice became very quiet. "Imagine what we can do now that we're free." The room was completely silent for a long moment. Finally, Council Speaker Veltar spoke through the communication system from Nexus Prime. "What are your terms?" he asked. Ambassador Park smiled. "Full integration of all military forces under human command. Complete technological sharing. No more hidden research. No more secret weapons. And most importantly, no more voting on strategic decisions. The War Council will consist of human commanders and advisory representatives from major species." "And after the war?" asked. "After the war," Park replied, "we'll see if the galaxy has learned to trust the species they once thought too dangerous to be free." General Choi looked around the room, at the faces of beings who had once considered themselves humanity's superiors. "The war begins in earnest tomorrow. You wanted to see what humans could do when they weren't fighting each other. Now you'll find out." 1 year later, Fleet Admiral Syojan Park stood on the bridge of the Terra Invictus, humanity's flagship as the last Devourer stronghold, surrendered. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. "Status report," he said to his bridge crew. "All enemy forces have ceased resistance," reported Communications Officer Boram Shen. "The Devourer home cluster is secured. Their leadership is requesting terms for surrender." Admiral Park nodded. The final battle had lasted only 3 hours, a far cry from the months-long sieges that galactic military doctrine had predicted. Human tactics had evolved throughout the war, becoming more precise, more efficient, and more devastating with each engagement. "Sir," called out Tactical Officer Jin Woo Nam, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Minji Ryu at the WoW Rehabilitation Center. Put her through." Dr. Ryu's image appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Admiral Park could see something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Devourers working alongside human technicians, their biological forms modified to support individual consciousness rather than hive mind compulsion. Admiral Dr. Ryu reported, "The final batch of Devourer subjects has successfully completed the individuation process. They are no longer driven by the consume and expand imperative. Each one is now a separate being with their own thoughts and choices." It was perhaps humanity's most controversial decision of the war. Rather than genocide, they had chosen rehabilitation. Where other species had seen only monsters to be destroyed, humans had seen minds trapped by biological programming, minds that could be freed. Any resistance from the subjects? None at all. Dr. Ryu smiled. In fact, many of them are volunteering to help with the reconstruction efforts. It turns out that when you remove the compulsion to consume everything, Devourers are actually quite peaceful. They have an incredible ability to understand and repair complex systems. Admiral Park switched off the communication and turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for Earth. It's time to go home." The journey back to Seoul gave him time to reflect on what humanity had accomplished. They had not just won a war. They had fundamentally changed how the galaxy worked. The old Council of Species had been replaced by the Unified Galactic Assembly, a merit-based system where survival and effectiveness mattered more than tradition and politics. When the Terra Invictus arrived at Earth, Admiral Park was surprised to see who was waiting for him. Council Chairman Jan Park, his sister, who had gone from being Earth's ignored ambassador to leader of the entire galaxy, stood on the observation deck of Sol Station. "Welcome home, brother," she said as he came aboard. "How does it feel to have saved the galaxy?" "Like we did what we had to do," he replied. "How does it feel to run it?" She gestured toward the massive window that looked out at Earth. "Like we're just getting started." The view was breathtaking. Earth hung in space like a blue and green jewel. But it was no longer alone. Orbital platforms surrounded it, connected by streams of traffic from hundreds of worlds. Ships that represented dozens of species came and went, bringing trade, knowledge, and cooperation that had never existed before. "The other species are adapting," Jishuan continued. "Slowly, but they're learning. The Valorans have started using our consciousness linking technology for their art projects. The Kree are incorporating human tactical doctrine into their military training. Even the Ethereals are interested in our quantum physics. And the Resistance, less than expected. When you prove that your way works better, people tend to follow your lead. The war with the Devourers could have lasted decades and destroyed half the galaxy. Instead, it lasted 1 year and ended with rehabilitation rather than extermination. They walked through Sol Station, past laboratories where human and alien scientists worked together, past training facilities where mixed species crews learned to operate the new generation of ships, past diplomatic offices where the future of galactic civilization was being planned. Director Ta-Hoon Kim met them at the central hub, where a massive memorial had been constructed. It was not dedicated to human victory, but to the lesson learned. An inscription written in every galactic language read, "They sought to contain our chaos. Instead, they unleashed our purpose." The memorial was Ambassador Veltar's idea, Director Kim explained. He said it was important to remember what happens when fear makes decisions instead of wisdom. Admiral Park looked at the memorial and felt a strange sense of completion. "Where is now?" "Leading the expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy," Jiwan replied. He volunteered to take the first mixed-species crew on a long-range exploration mission, said he wanted to make sure that if we meet other galactic civilizations, we approach them with cooperation instead of suspicion. And the Devourers, Director Kim gestured to another section of the station. Most of them have chosen to join the reconstruction efforts. They're helping to rebuild the worlds they damaged during their expansion. A few have asked to join exploration missions. They're incredibly good at understanding alien technology and environments. As they continued their tour, Admiral Park noticed something that made him smile. In every section of the station, humans and aliens worked together, without the rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic society for millennia. Species that had barely spoken to each other before the war now collaborated as equals. "There's something else," Jan said as they reached her office. "Something we need to discuss privately." She activated a secure communication system and brought up a star chart that showed the edge of known space. Long-range sensors have detected something. The display showed energy signatures, unlike anything in their databases. Not Devourer, not Council, not human. Something entirely new was moving at the very edge of galactic detection range. How far out? Admiral Park asked. At least 2 years at maximum speed, scanner operator Boram Shin reported from the communication link. But sir, the signatures are massive. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything we've encountered. Admiral Park studied the readings. The energy patterns were complex, organized, clearly artificial. Another galaxy-spanning civilization. Possibly, Jiwan replied, or something else entirely. The point is, we have time to prepare, time to learn, time to approach first contact the right way. Admiral Park nodded. The galaxy had learned its lesson about judging others too quickly. What does the Assembly want to do? Send an expedition, mixed crews, multiple species, full diplomatic protocols, and they want you to lead it. Me? You ended the last galactic war in a year. You turned the most feared species in known space into allies. If anyone can make first contact with unknown aliens without starting another war, it's you. Admiral Park looked out the window at the stars beyond Earth's solar system. The galaxy that had once seemed so vast now felt small, familiar. Humanity had gone from quarantined primitives to galactic leaders in less than 5 years. They had proven that diversity and cooperation were stronger than tradition and hierarchy. But the universe was vast, and there were always new challenges ahead. When do we leave? He asked. 6 months, Jiwan replied. Captain Han Wu Li is assembling the crew now. Representatives from 37 species have volunteered. Even some of the rehabilitated devourers want to come. Admiral Park smiled. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity had always known. That strength came not from being the same, but from working together despite being different. The unknown signals from deep space pulsed on the display, mysterious and potentially dangerous. But Admiral Park felt no fear. Humanity's greatest tests had always come from the unknown. And humanity's greatest victories had always come from turning unknown threats into unexpected allies. The Galaxy Council voted against Earth, he said quietly. They thought we were too dangerous to be free. And they were right, Jijuan replied. We were dangerous. Dangerous to the old way of thinking. Dangerous to the idea that different meant enemy. Dangerous to the belief that the universe was too big and too hostile for cooperation to work. Admiral Park looked at his sister, who had gone from representing a god species to leading the most successful galactic government in known history. Think the next civilization will be ready for us. I think, she said with a smile. They're about to find out. Outside the window, ships from 100 worlds moved through space in perfect harmony, carrying the message that had become humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. The differences were not divisions, but opportunities to become something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of unknowns and possibilities, and humanity, along with their new galactic family, was ready to meet whatever came next.